Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. I salute you from the snowy mountaintops of Cyprus. This is the Troodos mountain range. I walked from a few kilometers from that direction and I walked up to this point. This is the highest altitude where I currently am, and now I want to descend and move in that direction. The weather these past few days has been unstable. We have had lots of snowfall and rain, but today it's a sunny day. We get the familiar blue sky and sunshine combination that Cyprus is known for. And for me, this is a good opportunity to venture outdoors and expound on some philosophical theme. The topic I want to cover today revolves around two broad subjects. One of them is comfort zone and the other is imposter feelings. These will probably constitute the title of this publication, so it will probably be comfort zone and imposter feelings or something like that. I want to reason about those two subjects, those two themes, and see what their connection is or are, what their connections are, and do it in a way that may help you the way it helped me overcome my own inhibitions. Let's start with a story. Let's start with what inspired me to think about these topics in tandem. Last year I won an international award. I won an award from the Free Software Foundation for my contributions to free software in general and GNU Emacs in particular. You don't need to know what GNU Emacs is and what free software is, but basically it's a field of programming, okay? So I received an award. I think the title was Outstanding New Free Software Contributor. So I received that award, and a while later I did an interview with a Chinese media outlet, and one of the questions was, I don't remember the exact words, but the spirit of it was that how does it feel for someone with your background to be involved in this milieu? How is it for someone like you who is not a programmer by training, someone like you who doesn't have a background in computer science or neighboring or related fields, how is it for someone like you to join this community and to actually make some contribution to it? Which is a very interesting question, because it implies the other question: how do you, as an outsider, join such a milieu? How do you feel about doing something that you are not familiar with, doing something that is outside your zone of comfort, doing something that you are not competent in, doing something that you may dread because of the feeling that you are an imposter, of the sense that what you are doing is something fake, that you are deceiving people. So how can you do that? It's a very interesting problematic. It's a very interesting research question. How can you exit? How can you escape from your realm of the familiar and go and join another community and in a public manner basically say, hey, I don't know this. Hey, I am ignorant. Hey, I am not an expert on this field, on this topic, in this field. I could do this. I could join this community and I could contribute and I could reach that level that I reached and that I continue to expand on because of one very simple idea. which wasn't easy for me to grasp, but I did eventually after a lot of trial, error, and suffering. The very simple idea is, what do I have to lose? And by extension, what does the world have to lose if I am incompetent? What do I have to lose? What does the world have to lose if I am ignorant? What do I have to lose? What does the world have to lose if I am wrong? Will anything happen? Will something terrible befall either me or my loved ones or humanity at large, or I don't know, this planet? If I prove to be an ignoramus in the field of programming in general or Emacs in particular? And the answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. The worst thing that could happen is that someone will tell you, hey, you are wrong, and you will just have to deal with it. So this is the real problem that we have here, that in our mind we assign too much value to something that is actually intangible, to something that we don't really own, that we don't really care if we lose, but because we assign too much value to it, we think that we will care if we lose it. And that something is would go with various descriptions depending on how you want to phrase it, but it's basically my honor, my pride, my standing, social standing. So we have this image of ourselves of being impeccable, or if we don't have it, we have this notion that we should appear as impeccable. We are faultless, we are perfect. And we think that if we show a little bit of a faulty aspect of our design, as it were, that we will be exposed, that this image that we have will fall apart. And this is why we refrain from exposing ourselves to the unknown, because the unknown comes with the risk that your little charade, that your impression of selfhood as this exalted being that is no longer a human being but is something of a demigod, that you are perfect in some way, that this image will be tainted, that this image will no longer apply, it will no longer correspond to what you think of yourself, to what others think of yourself. Fundamentally then, the feeling of being an imposter, this propensity to refrain from exposing yourself to the unknown, is rooted in hypocrisy. Because it is the hypocrisy, the fundamental hypocrisy, that I am not human. Why is that? Because if you acknowledge your humanity, you will acknowledge your imperfections, your imperfect nature. You are imperfect by design. But you pretend, either you tell yourself or society expects you to be something else. You are expected to be faultless. This hypocrisy creates a friction. It creates an essential mismatch between how we feel, how our nature develops, and how we think. Because there is always this contradiction between myself, my very constitution, essentially knowing that I am imperfect and trying to hide this, and my thinking, believing that I am perfect and wanting to show that I am perfect, So there is this push and pull between those two, and this creates tension. The way we rationalize this state, the way we remain in our state of hypocrisy, this hypocrisy that I outlined, is to say, I am comfortable here. Is to say that the realm of the familiar is the realm of the good for me. The world of the benign, that which contributes to my wellness. But this is not a true statement. This is just a rationalization. You say, oh, I am good here, because fundamentally you are hiding the fact that you are afraid to learn something else about the world, or something else about you. Before I joined the Emacs community, I didn't know this part of me. I didn't know that I could actually write a program, that I could actually contribute to this milieu, that I could actually do something useful here in a technical way and not just theoretically, you know. I didn't know that part of me. I learned it after the fact. I learned about it after I joined and after I exposed myself to those rigors, to this uncertainty. So we have this rationalization where we say, okay, look, what I have here, I know it, I know how it works, it's my routine, this thing is here, that other thing is there, everything works the way I expected, there is nothing to disturb this sense of self that I have. There is nothing to unsettle me. So it is comforting. But as I have said in other publications, in previous videos or writings on my website, protesilaos.com, by the way, is my website. As I have said, sometimes the comfort zone is just a cage that we have around us. What we call our comfort zone is just the confines of the known, the confines of our old self that are holding back our potential new self. And we assign value to them, so we say that they are good, those confines, this cell, this prison cell is great for us, but we do this while being inside the cell. So we do this with our prior thinking, with our prior state of mind. So we don't have an outlook of escaping from the cell. We are in the cell and we say this is the best it could possibly be. How do you know it, since you never got outside? You don't. You don't. This is a conclusion that you have come up with, but this conclusion, fundamentally, if you think about it, is not rooted in fact or in some cogent argument, in some persuasive, comprehensive theory, at the very least, a working hypothesis. No. This is something that you have come up with to justify in your mind your inertia and to basically befriend this fear of yours. This fear that, oh, I will be exposed. Oh, I will be an impostor to some other people. Oh, I will do this terrible thing of deceiving others. And by befriending this fear, you make it part of your everyday reality. It's like you hang out with a person that is not a good influence on you. So you hang out with a person that is holding you back, that is forcing you to do terrible things and to have bad habits, as it were. I used to have all sorts of self-inhibitions, exactly from this sense of, well, I am an imposter. I don't actually know this thing that we talk about. I don't actually know it to its full extent. And if you think about it, if you think about any field of knowledge, you can find the foremost expert in any field of knowledge. And that expert will still not know everything. And even if they somehow know it, they will still not be able to recall everything. They will still be imperfect in some way, even in that narrow niche. Even in that narrow field of inquiry, they will still not be perfect. So this idea that I don't know what I am talking about, if you take it very seriously, this idea applies to everyone. To everyone that has ever said anything. But imagine if we were to be held hostage in this prison cell by such an idea. We would never say anything that would take us forward. We would never say anything that will make us think about things from a different perspective. To reappraise that which we know. To inquire upon that which we don't know. And to continue being inquisitive. To continue being dubitative. To continue searching and to continue questioning. We wouldn't do any of that because we would be paralyzed, as it were. We would be rendered inactive by this fear. Oh, I am an imposter. Oh, I don't actually know what I am talking about. So what? So what? Who knows about everything? This is again, we return back to the realization that I am human. Which means that I am not omniscient. Who is omniscient? Show me one person who is omniscient. Show me one person who is perfect. And I will abandon everything that I do. And I will go and sit in a corner for the rest of my life and not utter a single word. And not talk about anything. Because then yes, I am an imposter. Then yes, I am faking it because there exists someone out there who can actually do it. Who can actually be perfect. Who can actually be omniscient. But until then, I have nothing to worry about. Until then, I have to acknowledge this state of affairs. I have to acknowledge my imperfections. I have to be honest about the fact that this is who I am. This is what I can do. This is what my nature renders possible. This is a very simple idea. To say, yes, you are human. This is obvious. Of course, we are human. We know this from when we are very little kids and we explore those books with all the animals and you can tell, okay, this is the lion, this is the monkey, this is the crocodile, that's a fish, blah, blah, blah. Here is a human. We know it. This is not something new. I am not telling you anything that you don't already know. You know all of this. I knew all of this. And yet, somehow, we have this role-playing game in our society. This pretentious social attitude where we want to be better than what we actually are, where we want to appear in a certain way. So it's a shadow play of appearances. You have to appear as being perfect. Don't expose yourself. What are you doing? That's bad for business. That's bad for your credibility. That's bad for your esteem, for your social standing. But what is the value of building something, this social standing or whatever, on a lie? What is the point of me being here, for example, and pretending that I am perfect, that I am the best philosopher that has ever been? Whatever best means in this regard, I have no idea. But let's assume that we have a criterion. And I am here and I am saying, hey, I am absolutely the best. That's why I am talking. All the others, forget about them. No. I talk because my nature has made me this way. It has made me this way where I have an inner need to satisfy, where I need to actually think about things, to talk about things, to explore concepts, to see the connections between them. And this is my reality. And in acknowledging this reality, I do what my nature renders possible, what my potential has in store for me, without fear, without hesitation, without inhibiting myself. There was this case many years ago. I was insecure. It was a knowledge-based insecurity. I have no problem in other types of insecurities that you can think about, but it's a knowledge-based, so where we get this imposter feelings quite often. So anyway, I was insecure, the specifics don't matter. And it was before I started thinking philosophically, before I was a philosopher. But I had this thought for a moment, and it was a caricature of the world, so it was funny and I was laughing to myself. So I said, okay, let's divide the world in two types of people. On the one hand, we have the introverts, people like me, who are introspective, who maybe think a lot about what they are doing, they think a lot about their own self, they live in their own world, as it were. And part of this living in your own world is also revolving around your own insecurities the whole time. So we have this type of person, on the one side. And on the other side, we have the extroverted people who are sociable and who are basically always with friends, always doing something. So I said to myself, here I am worrying. Here I am aggrandizing this inhibition that I have, this fear that I have, that if I prove to be an impostor, if I prove to be imperfect, something terrible will happen because everybody will notice. So I thought to myself, okay, look, we have the introverts and we have the extroverts. The extroverts are too busy with their friends. The introverts are too busy with their own insecurities. So who is actually paying attention to me? Who is actually paying attention to my insecurities? Who is actually staying there, standing there and observing by every little motion, prepared to attack me for my imperfections? And the answer is no one. The answer is, my friend, you are overthinking it. My friend, you need to quit. You need to break that loop of indecision, that loop of inaction, because you keep revolving around it and you think that it is the center of the world. You think that everything revolves around it because you revolve around it, which is normal if you think about it, because that's what you are more familiar with. But if you try to take a step back, you will notice that this is ridiculous. Of course, the whole world does not revolve around your little insecurities. Of course not. So the realization then is that from this caricature, of course, this is not hard science, but from this caricature, the realization, the kernel of truth, is that we are the problem. We are the problem. When we have those insecurities, when we have those self-inhibitions, It is exactly because our mind is allowed to run riot, to run rampant, and to set up all those obstacles. And then we cannot overcome, we cannot circumvent those obstacles because we are in the same mode of thinking that created the obstacles. So to circumvent them, to avoid the obstacles, we have to change our mode of thinking. We have to rethink. We have to change our disposition towards the world. And we start from a position of honesty. We start from a position of recognizing who I am and what the case is. What is the constitution of this case? What are the factors at play? And how do those factors contribute to the phenomena that are unfolding? When we adopt this mindset, when we start from this point of honesty. Now, honesty, I'm not saying go to everyone and say the whole truth about everything that has happened in your life and give them your social security number or whatever. This is not what I'm saying, okay? Obviously. What I am saying is recognize what the reality is. Very simple. When we start then from this position of honesty, we are standing on firm ground because there is a match, there is alignment between our nature and our thinking. Now we are operating in tandem. Now we have concerted action, as it were. Coordination between the mind and the body. They are one again. And by having this, we can now overcome our self-inhibitions as if they were not even there. It's, of course, when you are feeling inhibited, this feels like a mountain, and it's impossible for you to climb that mountain. It is very steep, there are rocks falling, and there is wind blowing, and it is super cold. You cannot possibly do it. But when you actually change your mind, when you actually start from a position of honesty and you say, hey, I am human, I am imperfect, I will try my best and see how it goes, always without wanting to fool anyone. When you do that, then this mountain disappears, it dissolves, it melts like ice, and there is nothing there left. And now it is, you will feel, in retrospect, you will think to yourself, how ridiculous, how preposterous was I to entertain those fears, to live in that restrained environment, to limit myself in that prison cell, and to think that I was having a great time, to think that that was a comfortable place for me, to think that that was the best I could ever have, the best I could ever do. We cannot know in full what we can do, because that is unknown. That remains to be determined. We have to give it a try. Let's try and see what you can do. It's like a bit with sport. If you have never played the game, you can say whatever you want about it. Maybe you will say that you are the best to play the game. Let's say football, soccer. Oh, I am absolutely the greatest, but you have never kicked the ball. Or you can go to the other extreme and say, I will never be good at this, but still you have never kicked the ball. How do you know it? How do you know if you have not tried it in earnest? If you have not given it a fair chance? And the answer is you don't know. You are just being dogmatic. This is just your ignorance speaking, your ignorance masquerading as certainty. So I say, Don't allow that to happen. I say be honest and allow yourself to take small steps outside this comfort zone. You can do it because the prison cell, there is no lock to it, so you can just open the door and walk out. And you can do it. Now, the real issue then is, how do we do it? How do we go from the one extreme of being, not the one extreme rather, how do we go from the extreme of being in a state of self-containment to actually do something that is productive? How do we do that? And the answer is, we do it in a stepwise way, in a stepwise fashion. By the way, maybe I should go back because there is the road over there and maybe it is slippery. So let's get back. Let's continue. Let's go this way. So I don't want to get in the slippery terrain because, you know, with the ice and everything. How do we go? And we go in a stepwise way. We proceed like the turtle, one small step at a time, and we do it this way for two reasons. The one reason is that when you are taking small steps, you are always in a stable state. You can think of it like walking on ice, let's say. You cannot run because you will fall, so you have to take it slow. It is a bit like this. You are in a precarious state, so you have to take it slow. You have to be careful with your every step. That's the one thing. The other thing why we have to take it slow is because we want to focus on the here and now of what it is that we are actually doing, and not on some end goal. If you set end goals that are very descriptive, that you have detailed in every way, this is again your ignorance speaking. This is again you as an outsider saying what you will do about something that you don't actually know. It's like me, you know, a few years back saying that in 3 years I will develop those programs for Emacs, even though I didn't have any notion of programming. So what could I possibly say that would be helpful in that regard? And why would that be my guide on this path? That would have been a mistake. So instead, have a general idea, like say, okay, I want to move in that direction, and let's see what happens. Maybe along the way I will take a detour, maybe I will find something else and just change my mind. That's okay. But I have this general idea and I will go in that direction, but I will do it step by step, and I will focus on what I am actually doing in the here and now. And this is a bit how I joined the free software space, the Emacs community. I started using Emacs in the summer of 2019, and I was tinkering with it, I was playing around with it, and gradually I started writing my own custom code for it, very slowly. One piece of code gave birth to a second piece of code, and then more, and then more, and then more, and eventually, before you even realize it, you have this corpus of work, and without knowing it, without actually thinking about it, you now are more competent than what you were before, without actually setting a target of me being competent and me contributing in this, that, and the other way. So fundamentally, what we want to do is to take steps to get outside the realm of the familiar. We want to do it slowly so that we are careful. Of course, we don't want to be reckless. But we want to basically trust the process. Trust the cosmos. You have talents. We all have talents. We all have inclinations. We all have a calling, as it were. So trust that this calling is calling you to something benign. So by going there, it is summoning you, and you must go there. and by going there something good will happen. And in trusting in yourself, in being honest about yourself, in recognizing who you are, and in recognizing what the case is, and in following the path, as it were, trusting the process, as it were, you can actually make something good out of it. And the thing is that along the way, along each step, you will feel liberated. You will feel nice. You will feel calm about it, because you don't have this obsession with the realm of the familiar, and you don't have this fear that comes from this obsession, which is the fear that what happens if I am actually a bit outside of the familiar? What happens if I actually don't know this or that or the other thing? And as I said, most of the time nothing happens. You are just assigning too much value to something that should have no value whatsoever. When we are honest in this way, and when we actually show that we are honest, we don't need to pretend that we are perfect. We don't need to pretend that we are faultless. We are more trustworthy. We are more credible. And instead of appearing as imposters, we actually appear as authorities. Authorities, though, not in the conventional sense, not in the sense that I am the single source of truth, not in that way, but in the very human way, in the very interpersonal way, that, okay, I can trust you. I can trust you because I know that there is no hidden agenda here. I know that you are not secretive. I know that what you are doing comes from a good place. And if it comes from a good place, and if what you are doing is done in a way that is consistent with your talents and in a way that is also helpful to others, others will recognize that in you. And others will, even if you have imperfections that are very obvious, will look past those imperfections. And we'll see what you are actually contributing. They will not be nitpicking, oh, but you have this little fault. There are, of course, people who are trolls, who will just want to mess up with you, but you don't want to pay attention to them, in the same way you don't want to pay attention to some minor fear and to turn it into a monster. The same thing with trolls, you just ignore them and life is good. And you never go trolling, TRAWILING, so you don't go trolling, you don't go basically searching for negative feedback. So you don't want actually to bring that upon yourself. So just be calm about it, just do your thing, and rather try to make others attack you, as it were. Don't try to apologize the whole time. But, oh, I am sorry, I don't know this or that. Okay, we know that you don't know it. It will be obvious that you don't know it if you try it and you are actually ignorant. So you don't need to apologize about that which is obvious. You are not doing anything wrong. But if you keep apologizing, then you are sending an invitation to the bullies. So don't do that. This is all in short, folks. Let me show you again the mountains. Let me switch to the rear camera. And we can see here, I walked from a few kilometers in that direction, so it was snowy. Of course, it has been sunny today, so much of the ice has melted, the snow rather, not the ice. And it will probably rain again. You can see there are some clouds gathering, so I should be heading back and not stay outdoors for too long, because that will put me in a difficult spot. But you can see here You can see here, of course, there is no snow on this specific dirt road, so this is all good. So let me switch to my camera. Okay, good. So this is basically what I wanted to talk about. Of course, as you can imagine, this also applies to this new business endeavor that I have started, this coaching about Emacs, Linux, and life in general that I talked about in my previous video, in my previous announcement. So of course, all these themes also apply to this, because I have never done any coaching before. I have never been an instructor in any of those fields before. So of course, for me, it's not something familiar. It's not something that I have been doing my whole life and I'm like, okay, let's continue doing the same thing. It is something new. But I am honest about it, and I know that I will give it my best, and we will see how it goes. And again, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen? And the answer is nothing terrible. So we don't want to overthink it. We don't want to worry about it. So please be honest and be patient, because what I talk about here and what I talk about in general, it's not something that I thought about one day and the next day I could actually do it. What you see here is the distillation of a lot of thinking, of a lot of acting, the distillation of years of work. It's not something that you can actually do in one go. Sorry, where I should be going? Okay. It's not something that you can actually do in one go. So you have to have this patience built into everything that you are doing. Take it slow. Don't worry about the end goal again. Not the end goal. The immediate step. What is the next step? What is the here and now? Do that and you will be okay. Do that and you will see immediate progress. You will see that you are moving towards a direction that is away from what you once called the comfort zone, but is actually not comfortable at all. That's all for today, folks. Apparently I took the wrong road, so I will go this way and see where it goes. I should be moving up there. I don't know if you can see it. But anyway, let's go this way and see how it goes. So, that's all for today, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Take care. Goodbye from my side.